I'm gonna ruin this cake! Cat tries to bake! Hello and welcome to Cat Tries to Bake. I'm Kat and today we're going to be baking a chocolate cake roll or a Swiss roll from Sally's Baking Addiction. Before we jump into today's recipe, make sure you subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram at katchang0245. Also, before we start, I just wanted to take a moment to say a huge thank you to everybody who has subscribed, liked, shared any of my videos so far. This really started out as a passion project of mine and I had no idea where it would go, so any kind of support you've given me means the world. Aww. That being said, after I post this video, I'm going to take all of April off to focus on my studies and to film some really fun new content for May. So you won't be seeing any new content from me on YouTube for all of April, but I will still be posting things on my Instagram and on my TikTok. Okay, let's get started. For our first step, we're gonna preheat our oven to 350 degrees, so I'm gonna go do that right now. Next, I'm going to take out a 12-inch by 17-inch baking sheet and grease it before I put down my parchment paper and then grease that. I don't have any non-stick spray, so I'm just going to take some vegetable oil and grease my pan. Now that my baking sheet is all greased, I'm going to cut out a sheet of parchment paper that fits this exactly. I just finished fitting my parchment paper on, and now I'm going to grease my parchment paper too. It is greasy up in here. I'm gonna set this aside while we make our cake batter. Stand mixer is coming out! The first step in making our cake batter involves whipping our egg whites, so I'm gonna use my whisk attachment on this. Speaking of eggs, I still have to separate the 4 eggs that I'm using for this recipe, so I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna move this aside, and I've got my 4 eggs right here that I'm gonna separate. It's getting all over my hand. There's a lot of cleanup that goes into Cat Tries to Bake that you don't see. Okay, my eggs are separated and I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna put my 4 egg whites plus a 1/3 cup of sugar into the bowl of my stand mixer, and I'm gonna whisk until stiff peaks form. Bring this back over here. Egg whites going in. Sugar going in. Time to whisk.
5 minutes later.
Really beautiful stiff peaks have formed. Right now I'm gonna set this aside and I'm gonna work on my egg yolks. Right now I'm gonna beat together my 4 egg yolks, another 1/3 cup of sugar, and the instructions say 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, but I always put extra, so this is 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Here go my egg yolks. 1/3 cup of sugar. And then my 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now I'm gonna beat all of this together until it's pale and creamy. So I beat it for about 2 minutes and it is combined, but it's not as pale or creamy as I thought it would be. I really hope it's not because I added that extra teaspoon of vanilla extract, but knowing my luck, it probably is. I've never had a problem with adding extra vanilla extract before, so extra vanilla extract. I hope this is okay. Now I'm gonna put this aside as well and work on my dry ingredients. Right now I'm gonna sift together my 1/2 cup of flour, my 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, my 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna do that Rachel Ray thing again where she throws salt behind her back because, I don't know, feeling reckless today. Now it's time for me to pour in my 1 tablespoon of strong brewed coffee, a 1/4 cup of melted butter, which I've substituted with 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil from looking at the notes in the recipe, and my egg yolk mixture, which is over there. If you didn't know, the reason why we're putting coffee into our mixture is so that it strengthens the chocolate flavor. You're not gonna taste coffee in the final product. Coffee going in, vegetable oil going in, and egg yolk mixture going in. Gonna make sure all of it is in with my spatula. Now I'm gonna beat everything together on medium speed until it's combined. Scrape some of this cocoa powder down on the sides and keep beating. Just beat it. You know what's really funny? My dad, who is a Taiwanese immigrant, used to sing Beat It just super randomly all the time during my childhood, but I had no idea what it was from. I had no idea who Michael Jackson was. He would just come into a room and be like, just beat it. Love you, Dad. Right now this is looking really beautifully combined, just very chocolatey and glossy and shiny. And now I'm going to take my rubber spatula and I'm gonna gently fold my egg whites in. I'm gonna take as much out from the whisk attachment as possible, and I'm really gonna do my best to just gently fold it in and not overmix it because we don't want the egg whites to deflate. Basically, all of my egg whites are in. I'm just going to remove this. I'm gonna get these attachments out of the way, eject them here. I love doing this. Ready? Okay, I'm gonna put this aside and I'm gonna start folding these. Alrighty, let the folding commence. Wow, super airy. I love it. It smells so amazing though. I wish you could be here to smell it. I think this is pretty good. I don't see any like really concentrated chocolate bits anymore, so I think I'm good. Okay, I'm super excited because we're finally done and we're gonna pour this into my baking sheet. Hello, welcome back. Here we go. It's so light. If you hear random thumps in the background, it's because my dog, Apple, is playing with a bully stick. The instructions say that the layer is gonna be super thin, so I'm gonna try my best to spread it around, again, without deflating the egg whites. There's so much air in it, like every time I pull some apart to spread it more, I see a ton of air bubbles, which I think is exactly what we want. I see that there are some gaps as I spread it, so I'm really trying to close those. Let me try just like shaking and shimmying it. It's not moving. Okay, just gonna keep trying. Okay, I really think I've done the best I can at this point. I've even used a clean finger to sort of smooth things out, and now I'm gonna pop it into the oven. It's gonna bake at 350 degrees for 10 minutes, or until when I poke it with my finger, it springs back a little bit. All right, here we go. Right now my cake is baking in the oven, and I'm gonna take a piece of parchment paper that is bigger than the cake, lay it out on my countertop, and I'm gonna sift some cocoa powder over it. Here's 1 tablespoon, and here's 2 tablespoons. And my cake is still gonna bake for another few minutes, so I'm gonna go do some dishes. As you can see, I just finished baking my cake. It smells amazing. It looks very airy and a little fragile, but I did poke my finger a little bit onto the surface and it did spring back. Now I'm supposed to take a knife and loosen up the edges and then immediately invert it onto this parchment paper. Let's see how this goes. Why did I just touch that with my bare hand? Thankfully it's not that hot. I just pulled a Ross Geller, that episode of Friends that I think is called Ross is Fine, where, spoiler alert, Ross finds out that Rachel and Joey are dating. I just pulled what he did in the show.
But he does! Be careful! Very hot plate! Very hot!
Ross, you don't even have oven mitts on!
That is gonna hurt tomorrow.
I cannot believe I just did that on camera. I'm so nervous because the instructions say immediately, so I'm trying to do this as fast as I can. How am I gonna invert this without it just like falling apart? You guys are watching me do this in real time. Keep one hand on it. I'll just like hold it. Oh, okay, it's coming out. It's coming. I'm pushing it though. I'm pushing it. I'm gonna ruin this cake. This is really stressful. It folded, it probably cracked. It looks a little underbaked, I'm not gonna lie, so we're off to a great start, folks. Cat tries to bake! Okay, now I'm gonna tear this off. No, it's sticky. There's a hole already. It is tearing a little, but it's mostly okay. Now I'm supposed to take this parchment paper and roll it up, except I didn't invert the cake like straight on, so it's kind of crooked, and I'm just gonna do my best. I'm really just happy that there wasn't like a huge crack running down the middle or anything. I need water. All right, now that it's rolled, I'm gonna place this in my fridge and allow it to cool. I really have no idea how the contestants on Great British Bake Off do this because that by itself made me want to cry.
Later.
I put my cake in the fridge for a while and it's definitely a lot cooler. I think it might even be more on the cooler side than the warmer side. So I took it out in order for it to return to room temperature, and now I'm gonna make my whipped cream. I'm using a cup of heavy whipping cream, 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Heavy cream going in, vanilla, powdered sugar. It's really important that your heavy cream is cold, by the way. Now we're gonna whisk it for a few minutes until medium to stiff peaks form. I just finished whipping my cream and I made it definitely more on the stiff side than on the softer side. Right now I'm gonna bring my cake out and we're gonna spread this whipped cream all over it. I have my room temperature cake here that I'm very scared of unrolling, but I'm gonna unroll it onto this wire rack and then I'm going to spread the whipped cream on it very gently. Okay, there are a few holes in it, but this is my first time, so I'm giving myself grace. I'm leaving about a 1/2 inch border on every side where there's no whipped cream. I don't know if this is what I should do, but I'm gonna try to use the whipped cream to cover up any holes that I have. I know that you would think the whipped cream is just gonna go through the holes, but we have a ganache that I'm gonna put on top of the roll after it's rolled up, so hopefully that will kind of seal everything together. Okay, it's not looking too bad so far. Apple is very upset about something outside, so I might have to go check that out. I hope it's not an intruder. This is a lot of whipped cream, and I love it. Okay, I'm all done, and now I'm gonna go see what Apple's barking about. Anyway, now I'm gonna roll this back up, but without the parchment paper this time, and then I'm gonna set it aside. It is cracking a little bit, but I'm just gonna very gingerly do this. Just telling myself this is my first time. I think one side is thicker than the other. Oh, this whole part came off. Could be worse. It could be worse. Like the whole thing could be in pieces, but it's not. I guess I could just eat that on the plus side. I'm just reminding myself that people on Great British Baking Show who like audition somehow and make it, this also happens to them. So that is making me feel better about everything. All right, she's free. I'm gonna eat this because whatever, I don't care. This is such a mess. Yummy. I can't wait to make the ganache and then put it on and cut a slice and eat it. In order to make the ganache, I'm going to heat 1/2 cup of heavy cream until it starts to simmer but not boil. I'm gonna turn this to medium heat and let it start simmering. My heavy cream has just started to simmer, so I took it off heat before it got to a boil, and now I'm moving on to the next step. At this time, I'm gonna combine 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips with 1 tablespoon of light corn syrup. This corn syrup is stuck, so I'm just gonna take this and get in there. Now I'm gonna pour my hot heavy cream over the chocolate and stir to combine. This is just like when Eunice and I made the ganache for our homemade Milano cookies. It just took a while, like everything looked super separated from each other, and then all of a sudden, bam, it was glossy, beautiful ganache. By the way, if you haven't seen that video, you can check it out somewhere up here. If you hear some crunching in the background, it's my dog Apple eating her dinner. Me and Apple were best pals. Okay, it's really starting to come together now, which is great. Okay, I'd say this ganache looks pretty glossy and smooth and shiny and ready to pour all over my chocolate roll. It looks really drizzly. I feel like it's supposed to look more solid than this, but I know that I'm gonna refrigerate it for at least 30 to 60 minutes, so hopefully it'll be okay. Some of the chocolate chips didn't fully melt. Just trying really hard to make them melt now. That's a lot of ganache down there. Scoop this back in and then pour all over again. You can definitely hear my dog eating right now. My cake is pretty cracked in a bunch of places and I have not completely melted chocolate chips, so my cake is looking a little bumpy. Okay, I gotta say my cake is pretty ugly looking, but again, I think it's gonna taste good. I'm gonna just scoop up this leftover ganache and try to cover as much as I can one more time before I put it in the fridge. It's bothering me that it's not covering all of it, you know? Like there's just like some parts on the side that I can't really get to. You know, I think this is just the best that we're gonna get today, and that's fine. I am gonna try to transport this to the fridge in as clean of a way as possible. Then I have a Zoom call that starts literally in 4 minutes, so this is gonna be in the fridge definitely for over 30 to 60 minutes. It'll probably be in there for a few hours, and then I'll take it out and film me eating it.
Later that same evening.
Okay, it is now 10:30 at night. This has had several hours to sit in the refrigerator, and honestly, it's looking pretty solid. I was really scared that I was gonna take it out of the fridge and it was still gonna be this gloopy mess, but it's solidified pretty nicely. I just wish I had like waited for the chocolate chips to melt a little bit more. Maybe my heavy cream needed to be hotter when I poured it over the chocolate, but nothing you can do now. I am a little sad that like it doesn't really cover the entire roll. Like I didn't really expect it to cover the bottom, but the sides, like I think because there's an overhang of cake, it's harder to get to like sort of the side but like under parts of cake. I don't even know if that makes sense, but I'm finally ready to cut this and try it out. Okay, I'm just gonna take this serrated knife and try to cut just like the very edge of it. It's cutting pretty nicely. Okay, it is a cute little swirl. Let's move this aside and I'm just gonna try a little bit. I promise that's not the cake. I just like choked on my own spit. The cake is okay. Anything like negative that I say about what I'm tasting is absolutely my error, and like I'm pretty sure the recipe is fine. I think that the cake is a little drier than I wanted it to be, but it pairs nicely with the cream. The ganache is pretty good. I think that for next time, maybe, I don't really know how I could do better, but I'd like to just like pay even more attention to the cake, because I think that's the thing that I'm sort of like, this could be better. It could be more moist. I'm trying to figure out like how I could make that happen. I might just have to do some cake research. I honestly, like I know baking is a science and I really like reading about the science of baking, not the baking of science, but I don't know a lot about it. So I definitely want to just learn more. I'm definitely not good enough at this cake yet to be able to like sell it or bring it to parties or anything, but I definitely want to keep trying because it's not super hard. It's just like there are 3 components, like the cake, the whipped cream, and the ganache, and so it's a little more time consuming. But it wasn't a hard cake to make, despite the messes that I made earlier. My husband and I are gonna thoroughly enjoy this. Well, this has been Kat Tries to Bake. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.